The Thing in the Dark. The old house creaked like a dying whale, its bones groaning under the weight of a century's worth of secrets and shadows. It stood at the end of a deserted lane, a skeletal silhouette against the moonlit sky. Locals whispered of strange occurrences there, of shadows that moved on their own and eerie whispers carried on the wind. But curiosity, as they say, killed the cat, and I was about to become its latest victim. My name is Elias, and I've always been drawn to the macabre, the allure of the unknown, the thrill of the inexplicable. It was like a siren's song to me, so when I heard about the old Blackwood Manor, I knew I had to explore it. Armed with a flashlight, a camera, and a healthy dose of skepticism, I stepped into the house. The interior was a labyrinth of decaying grandeur. Dust motes danced in the moonlight streaming through broken windows, casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. A musty scent hung heavy in the air, a mixture of decay and forgotten time. As I ventured deeper, the house seemed to close in around me, the creaks and groans growing louder, more insistent. It was in the attic that I first felt it. A presence, cold and otherworldly, that seemed to seep into my skin. The air grew thick with tension, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I switched on my flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing a vast, dusty space filled with forgotten relics. Suddenly, a noise, a soft scratching sound, broke the silence. My heart pounded in my ears as I strained to listen. It was coming from the far corner of the attic, a place shrouded in deep shadow. With trembling hands, I raised my flashlight and slowly moved towards the sound. The beam landed on a large, ornate trunk, its surface etched with intricate carvings. As I approached, a low growl echoed from within, a sound so primal and terrifying that it froze me to the spot. My mind raced, conjuring images of grotesque creatures and ancient evils. With a surge of courage, I forced myself to open the trunk. The lid creaked open, revealing a darkness so deep it seemed to swallow the light. A cold wind whipped out, carrying with it the scent of decay and something else, something inhuman. Then I saw it. A pair of glowing eyes peered up at me from the depths of the trunk. They were not human eyes. They were large, reptilian, and filled with a cold, predatory intelligence. A low, guttural hiss escaped from the darkness, followed by a sound like wet flesh tearing. Terror consumed me as I stumbled backward, my flashlight clattering to the floor. The creature within the trunk was rising, its form growing larger, more grotesque with every passing second. It was a humanoid shape, but its skin was slick and scaled, its limbs elongated and inhuman. Its mouth was a gaping maw filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. As it emerged from the trunk, I could see its true horror. It was not just a creature of flesh and bone, but something more, something ancient and evil. Its eyes burned with an unnatural intelligence, and its body seemed to writhe and shift, as if it were made of liquid shadow. In that moment, I knew I was facing something beyond comprehension. The thing in the dark was real, and it was hungry. The creature lunged, its inhuman speed a blur. I stumbled backward, my heart hammering in my chest. The flashlight lay useless on the floor, its beam lost in the darkness. I could hear its ragged breathing, a monstrous symphony of wet, guttural sounds. Panic seized me as I fumbled for anything, any weapon. My hand closed around a rusty poker lying forgotten in a corner. It was a feeble weapon, but it was all I had. As the creature closed in, I swung the poker with all my might, connecting with something solid. There was a sickening crunch, followed by a howl of rage. The creature stumbled back, its form flickering in the darkness. For a moment, I thought I had wounded it, but then it lunged again, its movements faster, more determined. I backed away, my legs trembling. The attic was a claustrophobic maze and there was nowhere to run. Desperation clawed at me as I realized I was trapped. The creature was gaining on me, its hot, fetid breath washing over me. Then, as if by a miracle, I saw a small barred window high up in the attic wall. It was a long shot, but it was my only hope. With renewed determination, I scrambled towards the window, the creature's relentless pursuit driving me forward. Reaching the window was a Herculean effort. My hands were slick with sweat, and the bars seemed to mock my desperation. As the creature's shadow loomed over me, I managed to get a grip on the bars and haul myself up. The window was small, and the drop to the ground below was terrifying. But I had no choice. With one final, desperate heave, I pushed myself out into the night. The fall was longer than I expected. The ground seemed to rush up to meet me, and for a heart-stopping moment I thought I would die. But then I hit the soft earth, rolling to a stop. I lay there, panting, my body aching. I looked up at the attic window. The thing was silhouetted against the moonlight, its grotesque form outlined against the darkness. It let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the night, a sound that chilled me to the bone. I scrambled to my feet and ran, my lungs burning, my legs heavy. I didn't stop until I reached the end of the lane and the safety of the open road. Behind me, I could hear the distant howl of the creature, a haunting reminder of the horror I had escaped. As I looked back at the old house, I saw a figure standing in one of the upper windows. It was tall and shadowy, with eyes that glowed like embers. A cold dread washed over me as I realized that the thing in the dark had not been confined to the attic. It was free, and it was watching me. The morning sun cast long, eerie shadows when I finally dared to look back at Blackwood Manor. Its silhouette against the dawn sky was that of a monstrous, brooding beast. I shivered, not from the cold, but from the chilling memory of what lurked within its walls. Word of the old house had always been shrouded in whispers, but now I knew the truth. The stories were real, more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. I had faced the unfathomable, the creature that defied all logic and reason. Days turned into weeks as I tried to piece together the fragments of my shattered sanity. Sleep was a luxury denied to me. Every shadow seemed to morph into that grotesque creature, its reptilian eyes burning into my dreams. I became a recluse, a prisoner of my own mind. Then the nightmares took a sinister turn. The creature was no longer a distant threat. It was in my house, slithering through the shadows, its cold breath on my neck. I would wake up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding like a trapped bird. I knew I had to confront my fear. I had to return to Blackwood Manor to face the thing once more. It was the only way to find peace, or perhaps an end to the torment. Armed with nothing but a renewed determination, I drove back to the desolate lane. The house looked even more sinister in the daylight, its decay laid bare. As I approached, a cold dread washed over me. I forced myself to step onto the porch, the wood creaking ominously beneath my weight. The interior was as I remembered it, but now it seemed to amplify my fear. Every corner held a potential threat, every shadow a lurking horror. I moved through the house with deliberate steps, my senses on high alert. The attic was the final frontier, the place where it all began. As I climbed the creaking stairs, my heart pounded in my ears. The air was thick with the same musty scent, and the shadows seemed to dance with an unnatural energy. Reaching the attic, I stood at the edge of the darkness, my breath held. A cold wind seemed to sweep through the room, carrying with it a familiar scent of decay. And then I saw it. A single, glowing eye peered out from the shadows. It was the thing, watching me, its presence as palpable as ever. Fear, cold and paralyzing, gripped me. But this time, I didn't run. I stood my ground, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I raised my voice, a challenge echoing in the silent room. "I see you," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm not afraid anymore." The eye seemed to flicker, as if surprised. Then it disappeared into the darkness. A silence descended upon the attic, a heavy, oppressive silence. And then, nothing. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my heart slowly returning to a normal rhythm. When I finally left the attic, the sun was setting, casting the house in a golden hue. As I drove away, I glanced back one last time. Blackwood Manor stood silent and still, a dark monolith against the twilight sky. I never saw the thing again, but the fear, the shadows, they lingered. They became a part of me, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurks within us all. And though I survived, a part of me died that day in the attic. I'm a changed man, forever marked by the horror of Blackwood Manor.